yeah, welcome to another video in the same outfit that I'm doing another video for. From the title and the thumbnail, you will know that today's video is about me reading the controversial books of booktube in 2023. So basically, the concept of this video, I think I've done one iteration of last year, in that I compiled a list of all my favorite booktubers, their favorite books, and their least favorite books. And then if any of those overlap, they are considered controversial books, in my opinion, and I will read the books that have gotten the most number of overlaps. So there are a total of 6 books for this video. We will slowly go through them as we go along. But yeah, the first book for this video will be Wayward by Amelia Hart.
I love the imagery in this book. I love the emphasis on nature and plants and insects and bugs and all of that kind of stuff. And overall, really engaging. I very much enjoyed it.
I love this one. It won on Goodreads with good reason. It is a beautiful book. The cover is my favorite of the year. I highly recommend it. It's super short, super easy to get through, and I loved it.
Then we've got a dual winner of a Goodreads Choice Awards. Dual winner, Wayward. Wayward by Amelia Hart. It's not good, guys. Don't pick it up. So you've got 3 separate stories, right? And it's 300 and whatever pages. You've basically got 3 novellas, right? And there's just not enough of a connection between these storylines to make me interested. I think that each of these storylines are such base level, like basic versions of these stories that, again, we've heard time and time again. I just don't like triple timeline.
I've just finished it today, so yeah, this received 3 votes. I hope I counted correctly, because in the best books video I didn't count correctly. In this story, we follow the perspective of 3 different women. It's also different timelines across 5 centuries. So we follow the perspective of Kate in 2019, wherein she flees London for Wayward Cottage, which was left behind to her by her great aunt Violet. She is trying to run away because she was in an abusive relationship. She's trying to escape from him, basically. From there, she starts to find out the secrets that her aunt has through what she finds in the cottage, basically. In our second perspective, it's in 1619, we follow Alta, who is awaiting trial for the murder of a local farmer who was stampeded to death by his herd. Her mother has always taught her their magic, which is a kind not rooted in spell casting, but in a deep knowledge of the natural world, in insects, animals, things like that. But in their time, especially, unusual women have always been deemed dangerous, and there's always like a hunt for witchcraft and to eliminate it, basically. So that is her storyline. And then last but not least, in 1942, during the World War II, we follow Kate's great aunt, actually, which is Violet, and she is trapped in her family's grand crumbling estate. Her storyline a little bit more complex, but also there is a very terrible man also in that, who is trying to take advantage of Violet, basically. Trigger warnings for this book: domestic abuse, rape, abortion, sexual assault, death of a parent, miscarriage, war, suicidal thoughts, and car accident. I have to say that I was very pleasantly surprised by this book, because I didn't read the blurb before going in, but I was sucked in quite quickly. All along I thought this was like a gothic thriller, and I was kind of dreading going in, but it's actually not. It's more of historical fiction and the mystery of how these 3 women's lives intertwine across time, right? It's really, really surprising. So I'm very happy, because it's a controversial books video, right, that this took me by surprise and I actually enjoyed it, because the writing was really good. Like, the 3 different perspectives had very fleshed out storylines that made you want to follow them. Although I would say that I had a preference for certain storylines over the others. The others weren't like boring at all. I wouldn't want to skip them mostly. Yeah, you will want to root for the 3 women in this story, and I was just very, very pleasantly surprised. Actually, nothing else that I want to say, because I don't want to review too many things. I think you just have to read it for yourself, because it's like, wow. I wouldn't expect this storyline to draw me in so much, so maybe it was really like the low expectations. I don't know, it was really, really surprising. I really liked the story. So yeah, I will come back and update when I have continued to read the next book for this video.
She writes the most fast-paced books I've ever read in my entire life. I will pick hers up thinking I'm just gonna read a chapter, and before I know it, I'm halfway through the book. I captured my reaction towards the end of this book in this video, and I highly recommend watching it because one of the biggest reactions I've had to a book this entire year was this one. So if you want a fun time, I highly recommend.
I was excited about this book because I thought that it would very nicely handle these sort of like harder hitting topics, right? Like a family who gaslights you, a job where you're not exactly gonna excel because you no longer have the skills that job takes, falling in love again when you were face blind. Like, I was excited to see how something that I don't really know much about was going to impact this person's life, and I was excited to see her triumph. Unfortunately, I feel like this book kind of bit off more than it can chew, or maybe the author bit off more than she could chew, because I feel like nothing was handled in a way that I enjoyed.
Hello, stranger. I just want to know what happened there, Catherine. The book was just, I felt like such a waste of my time because it wasn't funny enough to excuse how stupid everyone was. Like, could she not recognize voices? And like, did other people never tell her? Like, do her friends care about her so little that they wouldn't be like, hey, that guy you keep calling an asshole? Yeah, he's the guy you also have the hots for. Like, that's not even a spoiler because we knew. Like, the dramatic irony is that obviously we know that those two people are the same and she doesn't, but like, it didn't make it like, oh my god, I hope she figures it out. It just made me feel like this is the dumbest girl on the planet.
Hi, so okay, I am back with an update. So this one actually I've read in another video, so I am going to reuse the same clip, okay, because technically it's the same book, so my thoughts on it would be the same. So this is the second book that I'll be reading for this video, which is Hello Stranger. It also received 3 votes, same as Wayward. I'm just gonna leave you to my past self who will tell you about the book right now. And this book is about Sadie Montgomery, who is an artist preparing for her final art piece for this prestigious portrait competition, and she beat like a lot of people. I think 2,000 applied and only 10 finalists were chosen, and so she's preparing for that when suddenly she gets into an accident. There is this thing or tumor in her brain. If not removed, it will cause like severe consequences, so she has that surgery. But then after that, when she wakes up, she realizes that she has this thing called face blindness. She can still see, but every face she looks at is a jumbled puzzle of disconnected features. She's just trying to navigate that with the competition looming, as well as her family members. She has some like history with that as well, and also like a certain romance, because right afterwards she starts to get involved with this guy. So yeah. Okay, I can say the trigger warnings for this one. Trigger warnings for death of parents, medical content, bullying, panic attacks or disorders, grief and gaslighting, as well as a suicide attempt. In the end, I gave this 3.5 stars because I could feel the chemistry, but it wasn't wowing me, if that makes sense. And I felt like the plot was quite predictable, especially at the end. I was like, it really felt so predictable, and I think the author also recognizes that because it felt like she was explaining how it's possible through Q&As among the different characters, and then I was like, yeah, that wasn't really my cup of tea. I do appreciate the fact that face blindness was portrayed in this book, but the plot was very predictable. So in the end, I gave it 3.5 stars. So onward to the next book.
So this book just holds a very special place in my heart for personal reasons. I know it's not going to be that way for everyone. I absolutely loved it. She is now an all-time auto-buy favorite author of mine.
Oh my god, did I fall in love with this story. And once again, I'm going to say it was unexpected. I picked this one up honestly because of the cover. The cover is stunning, like it is beautiful. And then I found out the concept for it and was like, oh, that does sound really cool. What I wasn't expecting was how cozy and sweet and beautiful this story was. Like, I finished it and I immediately told my entire family they had to read it. I immediately got them set up with a copy of their own because I just needed other people to read it.
This one, man, this one really took me by surprise. It's just, oh my gosh, it is amazing. It is a beautiful work of fiction.
I picked this book up wanting a cozy and endearing time, and unfortunately I was left very underwhelmed by the story. I think my issue with this book, again, really was how it included a lot of very serious topics, and I'm just not sure it gave those topics enough time and weight to really explore the enormity of them. And
and because it included so many, I just feel like we sort of brushed over them in a way that I'm not sure was handled in the best way possible.
Hi, so this is, I don't know which clip of the video already, but I came to update that I finished The Wishing Game by Max Schaefer, and this received 4 votes, I think. Essentially, this story is about Lucy Hart, who grew up reading the Clock Island series by Jack Masterson. Now she's 26, a teacher's aide, and she wants to adopt one of her students, who is Christopher Lamb, a 7-year-old orphan. Then just when she is about to give up because her financial situation isn't that good, basically, Jack announces he's finally written a new book and he's holding a contest at his home on the real Clock Island, and Lucy is one of the 4 lucky contestants chosen to compete to win the one and only copy. So to her, she views it as a chance to win, and then she can sell off that book. Then she can have enough money to adopt Christopher. That's the story essentially. I gave this like 2.25 stars because I don't know if it's because I'm in a reading slump, but nothing much in the story grabbed my attention. Trigger warnings for this. Trigger warnings for death of a parent, abandonment, child death, child abuse, miscarriage, chronic illness, drug abuse, pedophilia, and cancer. Skincare. Bring Greens Tea Tree Pore Clay Pack. I recently tried double cleansing with an oil cleanser. Not really sure how effective it is yet, but yeah, and I'm gonna try on the Pore Clay Pack as well. Yeah, so I didn't really find the characters any like interesting, I would say. I was reading other Goodreads reviews and people also found it very weird how Lucy is a teacher's aide and then she is so unprofessional in terms of hugging, touching, and making promises to Christopher even though she can't technically carry them out. So there's also that aspect. And for the games, from the little attention that I paid it, because I have to admit that I didn't really like put in my 100% focus in reading. It was mostly like riddles that were the games, I would say. So not say super interesting also. Yeah, so I decided to give it 2.25 stars in the end because of all the reasons that I mentioned. And on this end, I would stand with the people who said that this was in their worst book, if I'm remembering the concept of my own video idea correctly. So that's it for this review. Oh my god, it looks so funny. And I will come back when I'm started to read the next book.
This was not my favorite book by her, but I definitely gave it an auto 5 stars, and I thought I would just mention it. I mean, every time her book comes out, like in the summertime, it's the best 2 days of my life.
I've said this many times now, this is my favorite Emily Henry book. This is the one for me. This is her peak, in my opinion. I ended up really enjoying Happy Place. I wasn't sure about it because I was like, I don't know, I'm always nervous going into new Emily Henry books because as much as I should be excited, I'm nervous because I've loved all the others so much. So I'm like, how can we top that? How can we like even live up to it? But we did.
I love Emily Henry books. This is my favorite. A lot of people last year said they did not enjoy this, and I loved it. I think because it is the book for me at this time period in my life.
I read this one during my 24-hour reading challenge, so like I'm pretty sure it was like the middle of the night when I read this one, or it was like 6 a.m. after staying up for 24 hours, and I still loved it. So that's saying a lot, but I've loved every single book that Emily Henry has ever come out with. I have no complaints about her books, so I wasn't surprised when I also loved this one.
Such a big disappointment for me. It's not a terrible book. Like, it's not. I think I gave it 2.5 stars, but the disappointment makes it feel like a flat 2-star.
Hi, I'm finally back to film an update for this video. The next book that I read was Happy Place by Emily Henry. I DNF'd it previously once before, and for this video I decided to pick it up and like give it another chance basically. This is not Emily Henry's latest release anymore. She also released Funny Story this year, and this story is basically about Harriet and Wynne, who have been a perfect couple since they met in college, except until they weren't. They broke up like 5 months ago and they haven't told their friends, and it's a tradition among their friend group to go to one of the characters' family summer vacation home to holiday together. Because they haven't told their friends, Harriet and Wynne's plan was for Wynne to say that he had something on so he couldn't go, and for Harriet to join the getaway. But then they found each other trapped there together with the same bedroom, and then they're like, okay, they can't tell their friends yet because the cottage is for sale, so this is the last time they'll be having this vacation, and they didn't want to ruin it for their friends. And also one of the friend couples was getting married, so they were like, okay, we really cannot like mess this up, let's just pretend that we're still dating. And that's where the story progresses. This book received 5 votes in terms of being controversial. I'm sure I would have put it in the intro already, but yes. So trigger warnings for death of a parent, grief, sexual content, alcohol, mental illness, drug use, and pregnancy. In the end, I decided to give this book 2 stars, which is like, oh my god, I think this is the lowest Emily Henry book I've ever rated. I just didn't feel connected to any of the characters. As I was reading this again for the second time, I was like, oh my god, I really want to DNF again. So definitely on the other side of the controversial argument. But yeah, I was just like, this is not working for me. I didn't care that they weren't together anymore. I didn't care why they weren't together. I wasn't even rooting for them to get back together. Didn't feel that chemistry. The friend group was so like questionable. There was one particular character in this book, Sabrina, which I didn't like because she was very controlling of the friend group, and it stems from like insecurity that the friend group is going to dissolve and disappear, but still not vibing with me. And this book functions as dual timelines, such that they will go back to when before Harriet and Wynne got together, and then they'll tell us their story of how they actually got together. But for me, I was just like, I am not interested. So that timeline didn't even work for me. Then it got a bit confusing also, because some of the chapters, to differentiate between the different timelines, they would say like real life, if not it's like Knott's Harbour, Maine, and then I don't know what exactly which year that timeline is in. It just wasn't really super clear for me, so I got a bit confused as I was reading it as well. So not the best reading experience. Yeah, 2 stars. Don't really want to talk too much about it. So far, I think the books I've read for the controversial books video isn't doing really well in terms of my taste for it. I don't really seem to like those books. But who knows, maybe the other books will change my mind, although I'm not optimistic anymore. So yeah, we shall see.
I know a lot of people haven't liked this, but you're wrong! I loved the writing retreat, so I just absolutely loved this. I absolutely loved this. I loved its weirdness, but I think it has just enough weirdness that like it's not a barrier to entry, right? Some books I read that are really weird, I'm like, this is beyond me trying to I can't figure out what you're trying to do. Do you know what I mean? It's not that. It's a followable book.
This is definitely, without a doubt, my favorite thriller that I read this year. I know I'm probably getting a lot of side eyes because there's a lot of people who really don't like this book, but this book, it feels like one of those books that was written just for me. You know, like this is exactly my kind of taste in a thriller book.
This is very divisive. People either absolutely hate this book or they absolutely love it. And I had a freaking fantastic time reading this, like absolutely fantastic. It's wild and I freaking loved it, but it's also dark. It is dark and weird and fun.
Everybody loves this book and I'm just sitting here like, this one? This is the girl we all love? My problem with this book was that it was messy. And not just in the plot, like yes, the plot was very messy in a way that was just super unbelievable, didn't really make any sense, but the writing was so messy. There were so many inconsistencies and plot holes, writing mistakes, just like so many things that kept taking me out of the story. I didn't even have the chance to enjoy it because there was just so much sloppiness.
I don't know how this is ending up on so many people's best of the year, and like I see all my friends giving this 4 and 5 stars. Just know if you're doing that, like I am side-eyeing you, because what the fuck. This thriller was a total and complete mess. It was so boring and meandering for the first half, and then the second half took this weird ass turn, completely turned the plot on its head, and not in a good way. There were so many plot holes. It was so fucking ridiculous and stupid.
I will say, for this being a debut, it was written very chaotically, but I can see why a lot of people do like this. For me, the bottom line was this was trying to be and do too many things. Another big reason why I didn't love this is all of our main character women were just really mean and rude. Some of them were nice to each other, but they were just nasty.
Okay, hi, I'm coming in to update because I have finished the next book for this video, which received 6 votes. So this is the second most controversial book of BookTube in 2023, and that book is The Writing Retreat by Julia Butts. I want to preface this review by saying that I went in knowing nothing, and I felt that that was a good way of going about reading this book. So try not to know as much as you can, but I still need to say some things about the book. So I will start with my rating of it first, okay? So that you can decide whether or not to read this. So I gave this 3.25 stars, and I'll go into why later on. So this book is about Alex. She has all but given up on her dreams of becoming a published author until she gets the message that she has been selected to go to this writing retreat organized by her idol author, who is called Rosa Velo. Okay, so this writer, she's organizing a writing retreat where 4 lucky writers that she deems have talent will get to go to her mansion and participate in this retreat. And what's good about it is that because she's such a famous author in the industry, whoever that she picks already is at an advantage by the other editors or publishing companies to want to sign on their books and whatever they write in that retreat. So she goes on to the retreat and discovers that her ex-best friend, Ren, is also in the retreat, and they had fallen out recently because of some things that happened. So they are also trying to deal with that, as well as trying to complete the writing retreat, but things happen from there. I gave this 3.25 stars because when I went in reading this, I was hooked by the writing, and I was very intrigued to find out what was happening. Trigger warnings. Trigger warnings for murder, sexual content, death, drug use, gun violence, child abuse, vomit, and racism. As I've progressed further on in the story, I was trying to think of what would happen. They did happen according to how I thought they would, except for the fact that there were a lot of twists, and then towards the end I was kind of like losing interest because it wasn't as interesting as the front part, which is weird because I think it didn't live up to my expectations in terms of the twist, because I was just thinking like, oh, okay, so it's just like that. I expected more from the ending. One thing is that this book is kind of sexual. Like, that's all I'm gonna say, like, it's kind of sexual. Yeah, I didn't really enjoy the last part of the book, so I can understand why it's controversial, because I was enjoying the first half, then not so much for the second half. But overall, I give it 3.25 stars because it was still an intriguing read to find out what happens at the end, and it's always thrillers. The end makes it or breaks it for me. So yeah, that's all I'm gonna say, and we have one last book left for this video, and I'll come back to update when I start reading that book, and that has like a lot of votes. So yeah, stay tuned.
The reason that this isn't in my top 10 is because you'll see another book in my most disappointing of the year, which really is upsetting, which kind of retroactively made me think differently about this book just a little bit. But I still wanted to mention it because I had the best time reading this. I had the time of my life. It was so much fun, so action-packed. This world is really interesting. I love a lot of the characters and how the storyline progressed in this book.
Once you hit a certain point in this book when the dragons really come out to play, that is when I was like, yes, I love this book. I love it. The biggest reason why I'm so into this series is it does give you that nostalgic feeling.
This one just felt different. I have read many books about dragons, but I've never read one that I enjoyed as much as this one.
This connected me to my inner Hunger Games divergent young YA reader, and I am a sucker for that.
Knocked it out of the park. I love this. This was fantastic. I wasn't expecting to do so. I don't think anyone was expecting this book to be as much of a hit as it is, but it was so good.
This one was really fun, to be honest. Like, it's just a fun, easy reading experience. It's full of adventure and action and dragons.
I think it goes without saying that this is a really good fantasy for me. I love those fantasy stories that remind you why you love fantasy, that feel nostalgic and just make you giddy. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but there's certain fantasy books I read that make me feel nostalgia for those days where I used to go to the bookstore before kind of Instagram and Bookstagram or anything, and you'd root through the shelves and you just find these fantasy books that you would just totally be immersed in, and you just love them. And that's what these books feel like to me. Like, Fourth Wing felt like that.
This book pretty much has every trope that everybody loves done in a way that everybody loves to see it done. I think that Rebecca Yarros actually writes the romance really well in here in a very compelling way that I kind of got swept up along in it.
This was just my first like taste of fantasy, and I think I really enjoyed it, which is why I gave it 5 stars, because it's something I was not used to. It was something new, and also it was just really entertaining.
I think what I didn't enjoy about this book was that I was promised this like high stakes dragon fantasy book, right? With a really fantastic romance at the center of it. I didn't see either of those things, and I feel like the execution of this book was really poor.
It ain't good. It's trash, in fact. And it's bad, in fact. I don't get it. I don't get how anyone could like
This book is bad. It's poorly written. It is so poorly written. Where's the world building? Oh, you didn't miss it. It's not there. There isn't any. This character is supposed to be 20 years old. She reads like she's 14, and then you get like 75% of the book, and there's a graphic sex scene.
I was initially enjoying it when I started the book, but as we progressed, it started to slowly get on my nerves, and it was starting to slowly fall into those annoying tropes that I've seen before that I don't really like.
I thought that the world building was barely there to begin with. There were a lot of things being mentioned as important, and yet because we don't get a lot of information, I don't really have the basis to care or to understand fully what is going on. The romance as well between Violet and Satan was just not great. They barely know each other, and this girly pop's like, this is the one, boys.
I started reading it in, I think, mid-May, and then I DNF'd it at 55 pages. I tried the audiobook, couldn't do it, so I DNF'd it. Audiobook is fucking awful. The sex scenes in Fourth Wing, first of all, if we're gonna talk about it, like, that lightning needs to chill. I cannot forget, dude, I need to quote this because it forever lives in my head, unfortunately. So, the girl, violence. I can never see the word violence the same ever again, and it's so fucking frustrating. This book has ruined so many things in my life, okay? Violet said, oh my god, during the sex scene, okay? And the guy goes,
which one? Because we're the only one in the room here, Violet, and I don't want to share.
Or something like that. And I'm like, please, like, gag me with a fucking knife. That is one of the cringiest lines I have ever read.
Okay, hi! I'm finally coming back to update and close out this video. Actually, I'm gonna use this same clip for both videos because this book is being featured in both. The book that I read, this is the last controversial book, and it's the most controversial because it received a total of 11 votes if I counted correctly. That book is Fourth Wing. This book, oh my gosh, I have to share with you like my story, okay? Because I think I picked this up 2 times before this was the 3rd time that I picked it up, and I think at the point in time when I read the book, I wasn't very into the story just yet. I think I was listening to the audiobook, and for me, I didn't really like the audiobook. It felt very flat. So I dropped it. Also because at that point in time, I hadn't read the other books for the video yet. So I thought, okay, let me hold off on this last book. And so when I finally read it this time around, I was finally immersed in the story. And oh my goodness, I must say that the ratings for this book are very, very controversial indeed. Like either 5 stars or 1 star. And I was like, oh. But let's talk about trigger warnings first then. Trigger warnings for sexual content, death, violence, death of a parent, war, injury, injury detail, vomit, and grief. This book, I read it via ebook and I highlighted quotes, right? As usual. I had 119 quotes. This book is really freaking long. 663 pages, and I think I read it in less than 5 days. Other than my 119 quotes, I even wrote down pointers that I wanted to share just in case I forget. And I have 11 points. 11! Oh my goodness. Let me try and show it to you, okay? Can you see it? Can you see my 11 points? Yeah, it's a lot. Okay, so I think it's a good sign when I can read like a really freaking thick book in less than 5 days, especially considering the fact that I'm not so much into fantasy anymore. Not say like I don't read them completely, but it's a bit hard for me to get immersed into the world building and things like that. But this book, holy moly. If you haven't heard of this story, like what this story is about, for one, I would recommend just going in blind because that's how I read the book and I really enjoyed my reading experience. Basically, we are following our main character, Violet Sorrengail, who is 20. Okay, now I know how old she is. I always thought she was 18. In this world, there is this thing called, I'm so sorry that I cannot pronounce the names, okay? Basjaya War College. Violet was supposed to enter the scribe quadrant, okay, where you live a quiet life among books and history. That's what she has been training for her whole life. Until her mother, who is a commanding general, she ordered Violet to join the hundreds of candidates striving to become the elite of their country called Navari, which are dragon riders, okay? When you enter to become a dragon rider, your chances of surviving are very slim in that you either graduate or you die. Especially for Violet, she only received the order like 6 months before she had to enlist in becoming a dragon rider. So she only had 6 months to train, and she is smaller than everyone else, and her body is always described as being very brittle, and death is only a heartbeat away. She's always been in pain. Her joints and bones crack very easily, more than the average person. In this world, dragons are the ones who choose whether or not to bond with the students who are studying to become dragon riders. Okay, so there are a lot of ways for dragon riders to die. For Violet, it's just her trying to survive to see the next sunrise every day. And also, when she enters, she is constantly being hunted because of her status as the daughter of the commander of being a Soaring Gale, especially by Xaden Ryerson, who is the most powerful and ruthless wing leader in the Riders Quadrant of 4th Wing, and he is the son of the rebel whom her mother executed many years ago. So a lot of people are out to get her, and that's how the story starts. And I really enjoyed this story, and from this plot alone, if you're interested to pick it up already, then please do know that I gave it 4.75 stars, but I'll round it up to 5 on Goodreads because of all my reasons that I'll list later. But I also have a few gripes with the book, which is why I couldn't give it the full 5, but I'll still round it up to 5. What I enjoyed about this story is that I really like the feeling when I'm reading a book and I can just want to continue reading and I don't want to watch my shows, which is a very good sign because the shows that I watch are very entertaining. So for a book to be more entertaining than that is very, very good. And there was a point in time wherein I was watching a very good show, and my book, which was this book, was also very gripping, which I was like, I'm winning in life at both. But yeah. And I already mentioned that I'm flying through this long ass book. I finished it really, really quickly, and I think there was a time where I just sat on my bed and read for like I don't know how many hours straight because we were reaching like a very interesting part in the story, and I was like, yes, it's really gripping, the plot points, because there's a lot of things you have to be scared of, in that there are always challenges out there for Violet in terms of trying to survive each day, each challenge, all the way until graduation. And then there's also people who are out to get her, and then you have also reached the point where, oh, like, okay, the dragons are finally starting to bond with the riders, which dragon is going to bond with who, and that kind of thing. And when the dragons entered, oh my goodness, so good. I love the dragons so freaking much. I went to search for fan art just to put a picture to my head, and I keep imagining, okay, that might be spoiled, so I'll save that part for later. It's just very intriguing for me to enjoy this book so much because it's very thick, and I find thick fantasies a little bit intimidating at this point because there's a lot to get through, but it didn't feel that way at all to me, perhaps because I was reading it as an ebook, but yeah, I'll never know. One interesting thing about this was that the author did world building through the main character blurting out facts about the history of this world when she gets nervous. So for example, she might be trying to focus and then to like keep her balance or things like that, and then she will just blurt out things like, oh, okay, in ancient history we used to have that kind of thing. And I thought it was quite interesting in that that's how the author chose to build the history of the world. And for some, they might view this as like a fault on the author's part because they felt that the author didn't know how to build the world, so they make the main character say these facts. But I thought it built more of her character because she studied to be a scribe, and as a scribe she used to like interact a lot with the history tomes and things like that, right? So I thought that was quite smart. But yeah, that's my opinion. Pairings were very predictable, so you might fault the book for that, but I didn't have much issues with that. I clearly knew where we were going, and I was just like, okay, I like this journey, I just want to find out more. So yeah, I'm just gonna go into more spoilery thoughts right now. So if you don't want to hear any more spoilers, you can just stop watching, but I just want to document it because I have so many things to say. So for one, these are gonna be like both good and bad, okay? I didn't know that our main character had a disability rep because she just kept being described as being very fragile and very weak. So her disability wasn't really documented or stated straight. So you have to kind of read between the lines. For me, I just thought that, I don't know, she was just generally born weaker, but that didn't mean anything. But maybe I wasn't reading too much into the lines when I should have. And then there were a few cheesy parts from this book, I would say. For example, she kept finding Xaden hot, and then she would keep saying things like, oh, he's so hot, why must he be so hot and so mean at the same time? He's gorgeous, he's a little beauty, everything, okay? And I'm just like, okay girl, calm down. We know you like him, don't need to put it so obvious, you know? He has a nickname for Violet called Violence, and I was like, that's such a freaking cheesy nickname, okay? Who would I don't even know who would find the nickname Violence cute. The nickname is supposed to be like an endearing term that is supposed to be shorter than your own name so that it's like easier to say, right? But it's longer than her own name, you know? And she is not a violent person, I would say. She spends a lot of the book trying not to kill people, even though she keeps getting hunted. So she tries to injure them but not kill them. Like she would try to poison them, she would injure their arms, their limbs, things like that, but never outright kill them until a certain point in the book. But yeah, not exactly the most violent person in the academy. There is a love triangle in this that I clearly didn't feel was necessary because the other guy was just totally not it. If you read The Hunger Games, the other guy reminds me so much of Gale from The Hunger Games because, okay, this is based on whatever knowledge from 10 years ago. Gale was the one who was always like trying to hinder Katniss and trying to say like, you're not fit for this, you're not meant with them, you're supposed to be here with me, basically hindering her growth and not accepting that she is a person that is capable of change. And that's exactly what's happening in this story as well. Our other love triangle guy keeps saying like, oh, you're not meant to be here, you're not up to this challenge, like go back to the scribe quadrant, you know, when it's not even her own choice in the first place. I really didn't like that guy and I don't even know if anyone likes him, but that was just my opinion. And this is an adult novel in which there are steamy scenes in which her disability disappears, okay? So she is freaking like, that's where I see the aggressiveness coming through, okay, in the freaking sex scenes. I think maybe because she has been sexually suppressed for like, I don't know how many months until they finally do it, right? Wow, freaking violent, not say violent, but freaking aggressive. And you would find it odd because she spends a lot of the book saying like, oh, I'm constantly in pain, my knees have to be wrapped every day, and then you just see her in the sex scene like on the floor and things like that, like in which angles I'm like, are you sure your body can take this? I think I've been going on and on about like the bad stuff, so let's talk about some good stuff, okay? I really love the dragons so much in this story. Oh my god, it's like huge spoilers, so really like don't listen if you don't want to be spoiled. But her dragon reminds me so much of Toothless. Although the dragon never eventually reaches the level of Toothless cute, but the before Toothless, like before Toothless actually gets bonded to the main character when he's fierce and things like that, I'm like, oh. But actually this dragon has teeth. But anyway, oh, and this is freaking cute, okay? It's freaking cute. Her golden dragon also is freaking cute. I love it so much. All the interactions between the dragons and her are great. I love it so much. I have seen negative comments of this book about how it's repetitive. Every trope that has been used in other fantasy books are just reused in this and people like it. I don't know because I haven't read a lot of dragon stories, but there is a plot point that I see like, okay, this has been done before, but I didn't feel like it was very boring. I really liked the interactions. So while other people may have negative comments, I for one really like this. And it's very rare for me to like a book so much. So I'm just gonna say that I like it, okay? And I'm very glad because it's a controversial book. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. Can't wait to read the next book, even though the next book is even longer. It's a great time. It's a great time, honestly. I have been blabbing and yapping for freaking 18 minutes. I unfortunately can't have an opinion on whether or not this book has a lot of similar tropes, but I was reminded of certain elements. For example, like I mentioned Toothless and The Hunger Games. But other books I didn't really get reminded of when I was reading this, so I would recommend you to read other people's reviews, like the negative ones, if you are concerned. But for me, I'm just trying to say that I really enjoyed this book. I don't know, it just made me really happy. I think that's all for this video as well. So if you enjoyed, please give me a thumbs up. Consider subscribing to my channel to see more of such content. I hope you're having a great day or a great week whenever or wherever you're watching. Remember to stay hydrated and I'll see you in my next video.